JAM WAXX Productions presents Jerry Rawlings, Ghana's former president in a confidential light. Ghana, West Africa, 1978. Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings comes to power in Ghana, Africa after serving as a fighter pilot in the Ghanaian Air Force. He leads a powerful coup d'etat from July 5th, 1978 to June 4th, 1979 and deposes Lieutenant General Frederick William Kwasi Akufo and becomes head of the military junta in Ghana. Elections quickly follow and Dr. Hila Lehman is elected president, only to be deposed by Jerry Rawlings in a second coup d'etat on December 31st, 1981. He continues to lead the military junta until 1992 and then serves 2 terms as the democratically elected president of Ghana until 2001. Let's now move forward to January 25th, 2006 in Paris, France. Here, former president of Ghana, Jerry Rawlings, responds confidentially to several personal questions from various journalists of the Club Millenium, hosted by Marie-Roger Biloa.
Mesdames et messieurs, le président Rawlings et le président Bouyoya. So please, sit down.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope we have a long day. I was not the only one who felt very passionate about the depth of corruption and the fact that we were reaching the stage of an explosion. Now, the situation was such that, and very true, it was like when you go into a kitchen, somebody makes a mistake of opening the gas. I mean, you light the match, you put on the gas, and there's no explosion. But the point is that what we had been going through, the persecution, the corruption, etc., was such that virtually the whole nation had become like a kitchen where they had opened the gas. All it needed was whether it was a general, but a general couldn't have done it, a senior officer couldn't have done it, because the lower ranks had lost faith in the senior ranks. So even if a senior rank had wanted to pull the armed forces for a coup against a military regime, they would not have obeyed him. They would have perceived him. And these are some of the things that get lost on some of you when you're studying the situation, because they don't see it, they don't understand that the ranks, the lower ranks, have lost respect and faith in the senior ranks. And sometimes the governments in power actually do it deliberately to corrupt the senior ranks so that they would have lost the respect of the subordinates as a way of neutralizing action. Meanwhile, the situation deteriorates. Now, having said that, what I'm trying to say is that it had degenerated to an extent where it was so volatile. It was like the gas in the kitchen. All it required was anybody to just light a match and throw it into the room and it would have exploded. You couldn't have controlled it within the military. You would have spilled onto the civil front. Your airport residential areas, the elitist areas would all have been taken over by, I mean, like a typical, what happened here in France, you know, how many decades ago is what I'm talking about. There was the need for an officer to take over, in the sense that if the officer did not lead the way and a rank did it, because of the degeneration of the situation and their hatred for the officer corps, because they had seen the officers from the lowest rank of the officer to the general as you're all in the same club, they're all in the same mess where you go and, you know, jig-jab and whatever, just have a drink. So they saw us all in the same category and didn't realize that even the junior officers, the middle ones, had a problem getting matters across. So had a subordinate, a sergeant, a WO or whatever it is, a corporal taking over, they would have just slaughtered all officers. And I'm telling you, we were on the verge of it. We tasted every philosophy in our country, Nkrumah socialism, capitalism, under Bouzia, single party, multi-party, generals' coups. None of it worked, because none of them somehow seemed accountable to the people, seemed transparent enough. All of them, whether they intervened or not, somewhere down the line became so corrupt and oppressive, so that ultimately, it was almost as if there was no way out, in the sense that the mass of our people, soldiers, police, fishermen, teachers, the mass of our people had become disillusioned with the so-called elite of the society. I'm not saying that all officers were bad. There were a good number of officers But maybe the earlier question you asked in relation to me was that being an Air Force pilot, I had a lot of interaction with the ranks in other units. I had interaction, you know, with the infantry whenever we had to, go and drop bombs in the forward, etc. I mean, some of us were in the front line and did a very good job of it, you know, dropping our bombs right on the target. We didn't use all these modern day facilities. It was the old methods. But the point is that with the passage of time, I'm trying to say that, you know, no. What I want to say is that there's a way in which, in most of our countries, the officers, not just the officers, managers, whatnots, big men, we relate to our people in a condescending manner. It's like we don't look at them in the face and tell them, look, this is what you're going to have to do, blah, 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 blah. And for the subordinate to say, yes, sir. Let me give you a typical example. I think the one reason why the white men probably may have made a little more progress than us is that the white man who owns the business, irrespective of who his employees are, his sons and whatnots, or people he has nothing to do with, in relating to him, the boss, they spend, I think, 70% of the 25% of the time on the rituals of yes, sir, etc., and 75% of the time on the science, the technicalities, and the substance of what has to be discussed and told to the boss. Very often, with you and I, where we come from, in the third world, in Africa, we spend 75% of the time on the rituals of obedience, the rituals of how we put it, etc. You know, the rituals of subordination, and only 25% on the substance of what you want to deal with. So invariably, we never quite get across the issue in a forceful manner. When you attempt it in a forceful manner, without being offensive, he thinks you're being offensive. He thinks you're being an upstart, etc.
How many hours did you sleep in those days?
Oh, very little.
No,
in fact,
very frankly, how many hours a night?
Let me tell you something worse. In all my 10 years at the castle, I don't think I spent more than 2 months sleeping on the bed. I always slept in my uniform on the sofa.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. I had hardly time to go and spend time at home to get to know my children within those 3-4 years, because I was afraid. I mean, the danger we were facing, some of which we talked about yesterday.
Had 7 attempts against you between
Not
1983?
7. I mean, too many. No, 82 onwards.
Yes, 82 onwards.
Yeah, it was numerous. I think the Western powers have a record of it. Yeah.
Yes.
No. So the point is that I did not want to develop an emotional attachment with my children, knowing very well that I could die the next minute and create an emotional traumatic situation for them. But after about 4 or 5 years, I just said, to hell with it. I can't see my children each time I come home, and I can't hold them and hug them. You see what I mean? So it was, look, when you're talking about the Liman regime, and we're being terrorized, she was pregnant, and a vehicle was smashed into the back of a car. A gun was put to her head. Fortunately, no bullet in it, by a so-called friend, and actually fired, except that there was no bullet. There are things we've gone through which the world is not talking about. Maybe we are also wrong that we have not put into paper, we have not written all that we've been through.
Yes, are you thinking about your memoirs?
People are doing it, but I think we ought to do our own.
Yes.
The difficulty of having to recognize what you can do, what you can undo, and what you cannot undo. I mean, I found it, like I said, a very painful thing, and I had difficulties coming to terms with it. And to some extent, to some degree, up till this day, I have a problem coming to terms with it. I intend to say something which, you know, so far, my interaction with you at this forum, and normally wherever I speak, I have a problem with being diplomatic, and I say things which others could use against me. Yesterday I said that Ghana is surrounded by 3 Francophone countries. And when you know what you're confronted with, and the neighboring countries, almost like trying to create a prison around you, and yet it appears the only area that seems to be creating a little window or political space and opportunity for you is the area, where one of your very best friends, politically and personally, was killed. So you begin to measure for the political survival of what we stand for. And assassination plots are being worked day and night against you. And looking around, the very area where your best friend was assassinated, the only place that does not seem to be enthusiastic, to partake in your elimination, you will have to give them some little credit. For whatever reasons they're doing it, one cannot deny it. One has to acknowledge it. Ladies and gentlemen, people may find it strange, but as head of state, I personally concentrated not 20, not 30, not 0, 60% of my energy on watching out for corrupt. Yes. You make the mistake of spending 0, 10, 15, 20% of your energy on watching out for corruption, you'll be shocked. You're sailing in the boat, somebody's digging a hole in the boat. So I make sure I use 60% of my energy watching out for things like that. If you don't keep a watch out for those who are digging holes in this thing, your boat will never reach the other bank. This is at a personal level. But at the mass level, the institutional level, the masses, like I'm saying, haven't seized power. We're part and parcel of it at the workplace. The PDCs were very much a part of the management because they had grown to distrust the thievery of management, that when the revolt happened, you couldn't close a door for a management to be working behind the door. The staff wanted to be part and parcel of whatever decision was taking place that was affecting the corporation. It brought so much integrity. In other words, with the empowerment process, where the manager did not have absolute control, with the involvement of, a fairly learned staff, they could participate and ask questions. After all, we're not dealing with Einstein's pi r square moon, the energy, whatever it is. We're dealing with just transportation of cocoa from here to here. We're dealing with just the timing. What are we else dealing with, Chief? We're dealing with a situation where, my brother, you listen. You and I live in a tropical, blazing African country. A government supposed to have brains in power. We have trees on our streets. I don't know if you've ever heard of this example. Lining the streets. You don't have enough public transport to take our poor folks to hospital, to school. They spent hours waiting for transport. The only shed they have are the trees by the side roads. What is wrong with the government people sitting in their offices? They want to modernize the city. They go and plant electricity poles for us to have electricity at night. So because of that, they hack off all the branches alongside the road. Meanwhile, the one who took that decision is sitting in the Benz in his suit, in the blazing African hot sun, sitting in an air-conditioned car in a suit. Meanwhile, the one who's going to use that electricity, poor first person, is asleep at night. How is that person going to enjoy that electricity? Do you understand? I'm telling you, today, because this government wants to make money, they are repeating the same thing. That's the kind of irresponsibility and corruption I want to talk about. One time I came to France, and I met journalists, and a reporter asked me, at that time, we were being acknowledged for how much we had achieved under the revolutionary era. And someone asked me, have you not achieved so and so much because of your military uniform? And I told the person, no. The credit does not go to my uniform. And let me assure you that any civilian that would have given us the integrity of leadership that I have given would have succeeded as much as we have, as much as I have. It has nothing to do with my uniform. You're making it sound as if we're using uniform to drive people on a slave farm. No, we use leadership. My wife was not sitting down, like I said, you know, at home, enjoying tea or whatever it is. A week, 2 weeks, despite her situation, she was all over the country. Women, 2 million members. You can't believe how much they were able to achieve. They were able to transform the labor, you know, the labor of productivity, the energy, into money and into political power. I'm saying that money, democracy is being monetized. Money is taking the place of money and what you call it, and executive use of force, power, are taking the place of morality, are taking the place of a philosophical outlook of life, are taking the place, the blatant use of power, are taking the place of authority, natural authority. Jeff Koinange of CNN came into my country. Okay, Jeff Koinange came into my country. Jeff Koinange came into my country. I tell her, I have to learn how to talk. I mean, you know, Chief, when you're riding a wild horse, it's not a wild horse, you know, a revolution for so many years. You have no choice but to shout. Otherwise, because everybody is shouting. No, let me finish my thing. What was it, Nana? Jeff Koinange came into my country in 2004, towards about 4 months before the elections, and he saw some of these horrible things going on. How the media locally was in cahoots with the government. No, I mean, any media man, you can write any false thing against it. The judiciary will clear you. You will earn a bank account and a Benz to go with it and a house to go with it. Oh yes, they've used it effectively just to poison people's minds. However, Jeff Koinange comes and sees, there's something very funny going on in Ghana. He's coming back to do a documentary on even this cocoa issue, factory issue. And I think said something to the effect that he'll also, yes, ahead of the elections, meaning he'll come to cover the elections. Do you know what happened? When Jeff Koinange left Ghana, he never came back. He was posted straight to Iraq. A man who was covering Africa. Because he said he's coming to cover what's going on, go check it. How many of countries like America, France, Britain, Germany, etc., Brussels, who have contracts from the past corrupt military regimes that are inimical to national progress, national enhancement of its economic activity? How many of these countries' governments, multinational corporations, will be prepared to review some of those, you know, unfortunate, or should I say, really, I mean, not violent, but it's an insult. How many of them will have the courage to actually review? I hear 2 major Western countries refuse to have anything to do with a review. How then can you ensure that there will be enough revenue? Here's a regime. You wanted to see democratic, whatever it is, it's taken place. They are now in office. To what extent can you show goodwill by re-examining that contract in order to allow that country that miserable little revenue that is owed to it in order to provide the facilities like water, etc., and to get the people out of that impoverishment?
What is your last word?
I hope I'll be back again. True. No, I mean, so long as they were so interested in it, there's so much more to share. I've only given them the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Jerry Rawlings, Ghana's former president, in A Confidential Light, directed and filmed by Charles JACKOTIN. Video editor, Jeremy Dauchez. Voiceover by Robert Zob Curley Jr. He continued to remain active until he died on the 12th of November in 2020 at the age of 73. But the legacy of President Jerry Rawlings still lives on. Presented by JAM WAXX Productions.